Okay, property investors, that was a pretty good one. I'm not going to lie, I had some fun there. We are talking to none other than Samantha Priddis of SoCo Realty. They are one of the leading property managers in Western Australia. And I don't know if you know this, but Western Australia is currently going through one of the biggest booms it's ever seen. What this session is all about is how to become a borderless investor. Should I be buying in my backyard? What are the chances that where I live right now is going to be the absolute best property location? My guess, slim to none. Unless you're in one of these great locations, then absolutely go ahead and do that. But we talk all about how to become a borderless investor. What are the things, what are the key considerations about buying remotely? How do we ensure that we just don't mess it up? And what are the things that people mess up with? Also, renovations. Renovations is taking a problem and creating a solution. And you get paid for that. You spend $20,000 on a renovation, you can make 20, 40, 60, 80,000 dollars worth of equity. But you need someone on your team to be able to do that for you, because obviously you live in Melbourne and you're buying in Perth, or you live in Queensland and you're buying in Melbourne. You need to have a solid team. So what are some of the key questions that you need to ask your team if they can actually help you do those things? Other things that we went through, how do we extract that knowledge and information from a local expert and understand if they can actually help us out with these types of renovations. Hey everyone, if you don't know who I am, my name is Joe Tucker, and along with Jeff Miles, we created Oz Property Investors. It is now Australia's largest property investment forum on Facebook, with over 65,000 members who are all trying to become better property investors together. That's the entire premise of this group, and that's all we do. Each and every week, we interview top property experts, and together we become better property investors. So if you like that, subscribe, do all of that kind of stuff. But this episode today is about how to become a borderless investor and how to not mess it up. Enjoy.
We are live on Oz Property Investors, and it's a special occasion. It's Valentine's Day. How you going, Sam? How's your day?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Very good, thank you. Haven't got any flowers yet, though. I'm still waiting.
Hopefully the mister's watching.
It's still early in Perth, but no, that's really good. It's good you had a good day, and we promised to get you out of here relatively early, your time. So we're gonna get straight into tonight or today is going to be a cracking session. We're going to talk about buying remotely, because for me that is a topic people talk about, and they ask questions like, should I do it? How do I do it? And how do I sort of do it profitably? Because it's easy to do, but hard to do really well. So we're going to unpack the pros and cons, and you've got some case studies you were saying, and then we're going to crack on to renovating remotely, because I pumped up that you've helped out with hundreds of renos, and maybe I think that's true. I reckon you would have done at least 100 for clients. And then we're going to talk about those questions you need to be asking your on the ground expert if you're not going to fly their boots on the ground style. And I think we'll have some fantastic examples and anecdotes from what you've looked at. And we'll also probably throw in some discussion on Perth. So plenty for everybody. And we love property. That's why we are here to talk property on Valentine's Day, Joe. So let's do it.
I'm all about the love. And Samantha is one of my loves as well. She's absolutely unreal in WA for property management. She's an absolute gun, works at SoCo. We had Ashley Goodchild on, and she shared so much wisdom. And you guys are pretty much crushing WA for property management. And it's probably because, and from an investor perspective, it's so important because you go like the extra mile, you do things that not everyone else does. And for, the everyday, basic investor, they might not see it, but when you deal with, like when you need to do an ugly duckling transformation, you can take a deal from, some of the deals that we've done together, even Sam, we've taken them from 400 to 500,000 by spending $20,000 on a renovation. So there's so much equity and cash in there, but how are you meant to be able to do that remotely as a property investor? And I think we'll kind of dive into that. But Jeff, what's the first question? What's the first cab off the rank for this one?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, we love asking people how they got into property. So what's your sort of story?
Actually, we need an intro. Who is this person that we're speaking with? That's probably the better question.
Well, normally I would sort of say that after we ask them. But Sam, you need no introduction, but you've been in property for over a decade, and you sort of started there you started in 2012, including property management, BDM roles. So you've sort of done the full gamut of roles. I don't know if you've done sales, but you've done a lot of sort of helping investors and all that jazz. So your aim though is to help people with their investment goals, but you also are about being strong, open, long-term relationships. So the thing I love about yourself as well is you are a Perth local. So you know what Perth is all about. You have an intimate knowledge of what's going on the ground. And that's what a lot of people who have just sort of woken up and realized that Perth is actually, there's a lot of potential there. They need people like yourself because they're not going to spend the $400 to fly them the red-eye flight. I think that's important. And as well, you do pre-settlement, you do renos, and you actually are able to cost up and get trades in who are your trusted sort of team of trades. So I think that's absolutely valuable and what people should take away. And recently you were announced the REWA, Real Estate Institute of WA. So say that 10 times fast, the BDM of the year of 2023. So it's fresh off the press, and subsequently were nominated as National BDM of the Year. So that's, I believe, in either April or May. So we don't know if you've won, but I think you're in with a red hot crack of that. So all the best of that. But what do we miss, Sam? What do you like doing in your spare time apart from supporting one of the more ordinary teams in the AFL? Sorry.
Look, don't start off bagging out Geelong, okay? Look, in my spare time, I'm generally looking at property because that's when the home opens are. So, and when I'm not doing that, I'm, doing what most of us are doing, which is just spending time with the family and housework and all the normal things. So definitely nothing too crazy. But a large percentage of my time is just looking at houses, and whether that's just research for a client or physically going out there and having a look takes up a pretty big part of my day.
Yeah, there's a lot of driving. I imagine you got a lot of kilometers on the car.
Yeah. The other day I drove from Rockingham to Alkimos. So, and then back again. So, it's miles away. Yeah. But it is what it is.
And that's absolute dedication.
Dedication to the cause. So how did you get into this whole property world?
Well, I actually started in sales. So I had sold and bought a few properties myself, and then sort of was at a point where I felt like I needed a bit of a career change. And so I thought, I'll give real estate a go. Started in sales. I've done sales admin. I've done reception, traveled around Perth and remotely as well in real estate. Fell into the property management role and was just like, this is fantastic, like no 2 days are the same. I loved the challenge of it all, and then was offered a BDM position. So the BDM is perfect for me because it brings in that little bit of sales and of course the property management knowledge, and then throw in my hobby of renovating. It's just an ideal situation. So it's fantastic. Loving it. Feels like I've only started it yesterday, but yeah, when you say over 10 years, it's just like, wow, it has been a really long time. Really long time.
Yeah, 10 years is unreal. But it's fun. I mean, it sounds like you're having, every time I call you up, you're like, cool, I'm doing this, I'm off to this one, and then we can go through this one, and no, this one's absolutely terrible. So one of the questions I have around property managers, I guess for a first-time investor that doesn't really have any idea, what are some of the things we should look out for or ask a property manager to see if they're one of the property management types to help us with, like, go that extra mile and help us with renovations or projects or things like that?
Look, I think you just need to be completely upfront from the get-go and outline exactly what your expectations are and what you're wanting from that property manager, and just get it really structured, because a lot of property managers don't do it. And it's not because they don't want to do it. A lot of the time they're just pushed for time, especially if they're doing end-to-end management. So in the industry, that's when you've got one property manager dealing with the tenant, the house, and the owner. So they do all the maintenance, the whole kit and caboodle. And even with manageable portfolio sizes and really great systems in place, to take on that extra role for that particular landlord is huge, and it is time consuming. So I think definitely ask the question, if the property manager is willing to do it, do they have the time? And then what's their strategy behind it? How do they fit that into their current schedule that they do? And, obviously you want to know your timelines. How often can they get to the property? Is it going to be an issue meeting trades? All of that sort of stuff. And just be really frank with them. And if they say, look, we can't offer that service, see if they can recommend someone that can, or look at your other options. But yeah, we want to know how big their portfolio size is as well if you're looking at taking on a property manager to get that extra information through.
Yeah, so if you mean portfolio size as in how many rentals they have or how many properties themselves they have?
How many properties themselves they have?
As an individual?
In their portfolio. No, in their portfolio, yeah.
As a property manager?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to be clear.
Yes.
What's your sort of magic? Like, people throw out that 100 or 150. What's your magic number that you think a property manager can realistically manage or should be managing?
Look, every property manager is different. And in our office, we've got a property manager who only sits on around 100, but her hours are different. And then we've got a property manager who sits on about 180. So it just depends on what the property manager wants. Fortunately for us, where we are, Ashley runs a very good business, and the property managers can get to a point where they feel comfortable. And if they don't want any more, then they can say, look, I can service these clients really well at this level, so I just want to stay here for now. Otherwise, or she can obviously take on more if she wants. So I think 150 is about the norm.
Yeah, nice. That's the norm. And when does it start to cut out? When are you seeing?
Probably at the 200 mark.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess 180 is for an absolute gun PM, and then 150 for the just to what is sustainable. Because that is a good question, because you do see property managers who have 200, like some people even flaunt it. I have 250 rentals, and it's like, well, why is that a challenge? Why is 250 so crazy?
And you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't even come down to the numbers. What it comes down to is how well you can service your clients and your tenants and your property. Whether you've got 5 properties or 50 properties, if you're dropping the ball, you're dropping the ball. Do you know what I mean? And it's not necessarily the amount. It'd be, it could be poor time management or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I
like it. Yeah, I'm sold. But it is, you do see it all. I've seen it before where a one time, like there might be an agency that just has one person in the entire business, and they're trying to grow and scale, and then they have so many teething problems and things that go wrong, because all of a sudden, great, I've now gone from 50 to 100. I've now gone to 150, and I've got to manage the sales, the process. So it is easier to deal with larger scales. Is there actually a minimum of people that you would go? So let's say you're looking in, I don't know, an investment in Northern Territory, for instance. Not saying that that's investment worthy or anything like that. It's not on the radar for me at all. But let's say you're looking there, and someone said, "Hey, I've got." Like, how would you decide to get a property manager from your experience? Like, would you be looking for 3 staff, 2 staff, 1 staff, 5 staff, 20 staff? Well, how would you think about it?
Look, I would definitely be researching their websites, checking out their Google reviews, and seeing what sort of support a property manager had. So what kind of, how many directors or licensees are listed, and how many sales reps are there? What's the PM assistant like? Does she have an assistant? Is there just the 2 PMs? I would absolutely be looking at all of that, because, if I'm giving my property to a property manager who is literally sitting in the chair by herself with no support, am I running the risk of a ball being dropped on my portfolio, on my property? So definitely it's good to have a relatively good sized team. So I would say 2 property managers and at least 1 assistant. And even if that's a virtual assistant, that's fine. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone sitting in the chair. So, and I think, definitely the Google reviews on people's websites when I'm looking for stuff is huge. They're very brutal on there, which is great.
Yeah, I have seen some. Well, it's also different. You have 2 sides of the transaction as well, because you have the tenants, and then you also have the investors, and you're kind of sitting in the middle. Obviously, you're a client for the investor, but you also have to protect the property, the tenant as well. I do see a bit of a mix of reviews when I look at people's sites, and it's like, you've got a whole heap of tenant problems. It's like, okay, well, is that a problem for me as an investor? Yeah, absolutely, because that they need to be servicing that client as well as making sure that the investor's happy, because you don't
That's
want to
right.
just, scrape every single dollar and cent and ruin the investment itself. There is a fine balance for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we should
Yeah.
get onto one of the more spicy topics, which is how do you buy remotely? Like, what are the pros and cons? So we'll get into that definitely, because I love that conversation about how many properties someone should have in their portfolio for a property manager, and it's vital to understand that. But it's also about we're going to talk about how do you buy remotely and what are the pros and cons of that as well.
Well, before we do that, before we jump straight into that, we got to jump into our little thing here, and then we'll dive into how to buy properties remotely with an amazing property manager. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement from the master of commercial property investing, Steve Polisi.
I love commercial property.
Get ready to have your minds blown as Steve is back, and he's got some pretty exciting news for us. Steve is unleashing his second sensational book upon the world, and get this, for the Oz Property Investors members out there, he's giving it away absolutely free. Yep, 100% free. Yep. 100% free for all property enthusiasts who want to learn and grow on their commercial property investing journey. But he's also added a little extra chili to make this deal even spicier. With this free book, you'll also receive a complimentary 1-hour strategy session with the man himself. Imagine a full 60 minutes with Steve's commercial and property genius dedicated to helping you master the intricate dance of commercial property investing. And who better to dance with the man who looks better than Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing? I don't know about that. Want to grab this offer? It's super easy. If you're live right now, click the link in the comments and secure it today. If not, grab your device, open up the browser, head over to polisiproperty.com, look for the book page and grab your free copy of Steve's latest masterpiece. And when you're checking out, make sure to use the exclusive code OZPROP to secure the free book and also your free 1-hour strategy session. My only concern with this offer is that Steve's going to have to turn it off soon, as he can only do so many sessions. So if you want to secure your spot, do so today. Oh, nearly passed out there.
That's a great commercial. Loved it.
Yeah.
Good fun. So we're going to talk about, because we promised the Interstate investment secrets. So we're going to deliver on this Valentine's Day. And first, the first topic off the rank is what are the pros and cons, or how do you actually buy remotely? And as part of that will be pros and cons. So how do people do it, Sam? I suppose I speak to you, but what's your process for helping people?
Well,
Yeah, look. Sorry, go on, Jeff. Go.
There you go. Hit it.
So obviously they'll contact me with wanting some information about general suburbs. So firstly, I think it's important for an investor to choose one little pocket and then maybe have 3 or 4 suburbs, not be looking across the whole Perth metro, because, you're never going to buy anything if you're looking at 5,000 suburbs. So we go through that together. We fine tune what areas they want to look at based on their budget and all that sort of jazz. And then it's, for me, I have to go and see the property. Do you know what I mean? I can do as many desktop appraisals and Google Street View map things as much as I want, but without having that boots on the ground and getting through the property to really see what it is that they're buying. And when I go and look at a house, I'm looking at lots of different things, but, I'm looking for potential problems. Is this house about to fall down, or are the gutters buggered, or, is it missing anything? Is it missing an aircon? Would it need a dishwasher? So all of those things I'll look for. I do a few detailed videos for them, so I sort of break it up. I'll do commentary the whole way through. So when I'm sending my videos through to my clients, I'll always start with, grab a paper and a pen to write some notes down as I go. We'll work out what the property needs, if it needs anything, what the potential issues are. And it's definitely not to beat agents down on price or anything like that. It's just so that the client is fully aware of the property so that they can make an informed decision. And then, on all of that, we're also looking at rentability. What has this property got that's different from the one down the street? So when they're both online at the same time for rent, we want people to come to us and we want them to pay the most amount of money for it. So, it's a little bit of that as well. So definitely boots on the ground is a must, and choosing that right person to look for you. So I know that some people do use Airtaskers and stuff like that to look at properties, which is great. And obviously people can choose a property manager as well. So it's just making sure that when they're going there, having them looking at the property for you, that they are looking for those potential problems and telling you what's missing, so that you know you're not going to get any surprises once it's settled and you've got someone going, you got no aircon or you got no dishwasher. So that's.
So if I was to, go onto Airtasker now as just a normal everyday investor, what would that list of things look like that you would ask them? Hey, Miss Airtasker, Mrs. Airtasker, look, I can't get there, but I want you to go into this property and look at X. Like, how would you frame that into a
Yeah, so I would say, I want you to go into this property. I want you to start at the front of the property. I want you to look for any, pan the camera around nice and slowly, look for any damages visually to you that you can see from ground level. Once you've walked into the property, I want you to tell me, how big is this room? Is this room going to fit, a king size bed in it, or what have you? Get them to visually tell you what's going on, because it always looks different through the camera, and then put things in place to say, yes, you would fit a king size bed in here, or look down at the flooring, feel it under your foot. Like, is this hollow flooring? Is it breaking up? And just get them to really look at it as if they're buying it for themselves, really.
I think the other thing, people need to make sure they're zooming out on the video, because some people, I've had people go and inspect.
And not move the camera too quick.
Yeah, exactly. It's always much slower than you think.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's absolute key to, and you want to be able to give, or I want to be able to give my clients the best possible videos and the most amount of information I can give them about the property, so that they can make a really confident decision, and they know full well what they're buying. Whether it is coming with a little bit of baggage or a little bit of work that needs to be done, so be it. At least we're aware of what it is, and we can plan for it, and we can budget for it, and and that's what we do.
Yeah, well, that's what I say probably every single day, is every problem has a solution. It just has a cost attached. And the goal of the inspection is to work out what that cost is and work it out. And like, one thing I think that is very important, because I hear it all the time, the real estate agent, we're right now, Perth is very competitive. A lot of Australia is very competitive. There's so many buyers out there. There's not enough stock. Not much stuff is coming online. So the real estate agent's like, no, you don't need an inspection. Let me do one for you. What are your thoughts on real estate agents, doing the video for you?
Look, 9 times out of 10, they're not too bad. But
9
real
times?
estate agent, well, maybe not that many times, but the real estate agent is to sell the property at the best possible price. Do you know what I mean? And quite often they won't do any commentary. They'll just do like a slow walkthrough or what have you. I recently picked up a property about 3 weeks ago. So Eastern States client purchased it through the agent himself. We, our business didn't have anything to do with it. He's called me and said, hey,
you weren't involved. You guys weren't involved at all. They trusted the agent video.
Trusted the agent. Yep. And so the property was due to settle. He's engaged us for property management. I spoke to him on the phone. He sent me all the photos, and I was like, this looks really great. Looking forward to it. So did all the marketing, picked up the keys, went there, and I was just in shock. I thought I was in the wrong house. I thought I had the wrong address, because I was like, this is nothing. This is nothing like the photos, So I took some videos and stuff, and I called him, and I said, I don't know how you want me to tell you this, so I'm just going to tell you, but the house needs this, and this, and we're looking at around spending this much. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, look, panning around, look at the ceiling, look at these walls, the doors hanging off, it was, and he was just, head in his hands, just going, well, that's on me. And I said, well, look, it's not an issue. We can definitely work through it. But I said to him, how did you purchase? And he said, oh, well, I just got the photos and the video walkthrough from the agent. It all looked good. And I went, okay, No worries.
Well, yeah, this is a glaring problem, and then this is the agent doing the walkthrough video. He's like, "Yeah, we're just going to go over here, and
Yeah.
we'll just yeah, get around. Oh, let's not
Yeah.
worry about that over there."
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened in this case. And it surprises me because realistically, even if the particular agent was upfront with what was going on in the property, he probably still would have bought it. He just would have been aware of it at the start, and he would have been able to plan for it because he's still got it's a nice house. It's definitely not junk or anything. So once it's tidied up, it's all going to be sweet. But I don't think
that's
that
20
there was
grand,
any
15
reason.
grand that he wasn't ready for.
Yes. Yeah.
Purely because he didn't do the little things, just a little bit of trust in an agent. But at the end of the day, obviously agents aren't allowed to lie and tell things, but they do have a fiduciary obligation to get the best for their vendor, right? So they're not on your side, they're not your friends. We just did a big newsletter on the what's it called? Oz Property Newsletter, I guess, and it talks about negotiation. I think it went live at 5 p.m. So anyone want to check that out? But it's exactly that. They are not there. They are there to get the best price out of you. And sometimes it just means that. But the good agents will be honest and say, look, you do need to spend $5 grand or something like that. But then they tell that to everyone, and everyone then factors that into their price.
That's exactly right.
And then it's all fair for everyone. There's no one's losing out. But that's not always the case.
Yeah. So I just think, when you're buying interstate, definitely get the agent to send you a video. But if you've got somebody else that you can engage, property manager from a different company or what have you, just to get a second opinion, get them to look for a few things, and so that you can be a little bit more confident in your decision.
Yeah.
I think that's particularly important in WA, where there is very little wriggle room on the pest and building. So once you're offering acceptance on that property, there is very little recourse for you exiting the deal if it's
very hard to get out of the sale. Yeah, very hard to get out of the sale. I think it's building and pest and your finance clause, really, isn't it? Like they're your two biggest
major structural defects as well, and it then comes down to is the vendor going to fix it? And if they're not going to fix it, then you do have an option to either negotiate, or not that I'm not a conveyancer, not financial or sort of advice, but then and then if they decline to, then you can decide to pull out of the deal. So it's
not
very
in WA.
important.
There's no pulling out. There's no pulling out in WA. You're not going to negotiate in this market. You're not negotiating a pest and building to allow you to pull out. There is only the standard REWA annexure, which allows you the structural stuff, which means the whole place is falling down and you got to run. Be careful.
Or your finances declined,
or if your finances decline.
Yeah. So I wanted to move on. Unless, do you have any more questions, Joe, because I wanted to ask about the pros versus cons. I think that'd be important to have a bit of a roundtable discussion. Do you have any questions before we do, Joe?
Yeah, mate. Pros and cons. No. Load them up.
So what are your thoughts on the pros versus buying remotely versus the cons, Sam? And we'll go around to Joe and myself quickly. Yeah. What are your thoughts on both of those?
You give us yours, mate. You give us yours.
Well, obviously the pro is that there are less costs associated, because if you're going to go and fly to Perth and fly to Adelaide, depending on which area and where you're from, it's going to cost you time and money, which that's a pro of buying remotely using somebody else, I suppose. And I suppose the other pro is you're not limited to your backyard, which is, if let's just say you live in Wollongong for whatever reason, you do that. Well, I don't know why you wouldn't live there, but some people do. So you live in there and you say, okay, I'm going to only buy in my backyard, or 2 hours for me. Is your best market in that area? And maybe it's not. Maybe it is. But that's one of the pros of buying remotely. Giving yourself the opportunity to open yourself up to the whole of Australia. Now, the cons for me, I would see, is that you are risking, particularly if you're not going to go boots on the ground, and have somebody do it for you, is that like Joe said, or like Sam said, there is that, if you're trusting the agent, if you haven't got somebody else to get in there for you, you're risking that. What is the unknown? How much are you costing yourself on that property? So I'll leave it at that, because otherwise I'm not going to have anything for Joe or Sam to talk to. What are your thoughts, Joe?
What are your thoughts, Sam? What do you reckon of the?
Well, I completely agree with what you've said, Jeff. Do you know what I mean? Like, being able to open up your backyard of step outside of your backyard and look throughout the whole of Australia to purchase. I mean, that's huge. It's massive, because the end game investment is to, grow our portfolios and make a bit of coin along the way. So being able to have the facility to buy remotely is fantastic. And yeah, I mean, obviously not knowing your areas is the massive downside when you're buying interstate. So, you've got to be able to research those suburbs and get some of that local knowledge to reduce that risk. But, pretty much agree with everything that you said there.
What are some of the, I'll come to mind shortly. What are some of the things that how do we get the knowledge without doing the knowledge, right? Like, what are some of the questions we can ask a property manager to pull out some of the more key valuable stuff, so that I don't have to, because I've flown to Perth, Sam, you and I have had a couple of drinks together, and dinner. But how do you actually, what do we say? What are we asking? How do I get to that knowledge without having to get on a plane?
Yeah, so you want to know, what's the demographic of this area, and what's my target tenant going to be? Because, like you said earlier, I can't remember if it was yourself or Jeff, if you're buying a 3x1 in a family area and it's sitting vacant because everyone wants a 4x2. So absolutely trying to know your demographic of the area. And then, are there any spots within there that we want to stay away from? Is there a really fantastic school that people are trying to get into? All of those sort of questions. And I think once you start talking to a property manager that services that area, they're just going to start, throwing information at you, because they drive it and they live it and they work it every day. So they're going to be very forthcoming. But absolutely knowing your demographic and your target tenant is going to help you choose the right property for that particular area.
Yeah. And one of the big things for me, one of my big questions is like, okay, where would you've got this suburb, X suburb, where would you invest and where wouldn't you invest? Where are the areas where you feel like you have to lock the doors at night, and are a little bit worried by? Like, surely there are pockets of, where you go to, Sam, and you're like, you know what? No way. This street, hell no, they're off my list.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, we're always very vocal about that too when we're talking to investors, and they still want to take the risk. That's fine. But we absolutely just say, look, this is what's happened, or this is the situation with this part of town, and let people make their decision. But yeah, you absolutely want to be asking those questions, and they'll tell you.
Yeah. Actually, one of the questions I have is, there was a post just recently, and they were like, I'm looking at a property and right next door is Housing Commission. The rest of the street's fine. But how much what would you say to that? Would that be a big, massive red flag? Hell no, let's get pack our bike and leave? Or where would you sit?
Look, there's nothing wrong with public housing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with public housing, and there definitely should be more of it. I think if I was looking at investment property and it was state housing directly next door, depending on the suburb location, I would 100% be driving out there to see it for myself in real time. And if this is a property that's got boarded up windows and burnt out cars at the front, I'd probably steer clear. But if it's an older style home where you can see that the tenants have been in there forever and a day and it's well maintained, then why wouldn't you buy next door? Do you know what I mean? Because once you've got a tenant in state housing, I mean, they're there forever. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have a massive problem with it. I wouldn't want to be in an area where if there was like a cluster. So if you've got, maybe 5 or 6 around, I've just found an experience. Sometimes, there's always going to be one that'll go a little bit pear-shaped, but I don't necessarily think it's a complete negative having someone like, state housing next door.
Yeah. Just one next to it. And I think it really is a case by case.
Absolutely. Case by case. Definitely do a drive-by. I like to do a drive-by on all the houses anyway, because, it's not always state housing. Sometimes it's just owner occupiers that don't look after their properties, or even, tenants.
Yeah. One of the things you said, especially if it's a certain suburb, not saying name the certain suburb, but why is that important? Like, why is it important? Why is it more important for certain suburbs than not other suburbs?
Well, certain suburbs have higher density state housing, lower income, low socio, you know, and they're just high risk factors, really, where you've got state housing scattered around other suburbs and there'll only be a few. Do you know what I mean? So you've got suburbs that, you know, you're paying less for the house and you're getting a smaller house on a bigger block and that sort of stuff. But it's around, you know, there's just a lot more state housing because they just built a whole lot in that area. So your risk is higher. And it's just low socio. So, you know, that's where you've got your shopping trolleys down the street and your burnout marks down the street and some windows boarded up and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just
holding Commodore and front lawn as well, probably. Maybe.
Yeah. And those areas you can still buy in. Like I still have clients buying those areas, and you know we just call them high risk, high reward because they can get, you know, decent rent for a small outlay. We just have to manage that risk, and the client just needs to be aware that, you know, this is where they've bought.
Yeah, I think it's a key.
We wouldn't live there. You know, we would say I'm not going to live there, but if you want to buy an investment property there, that's fine.
Yeah, and everyday properties for everyday people, right? Like if it's you want to serve the demographic that's there with an asset type that is there. So you don't want to be buying an $800,000 property in like Armidale in Western Australia because that's going overkill. That's too big of a property for the demographic. It's going to hit a ceiling of price and it's not going to extend beyond that 800,000. You just probably bought the most expensive property there.
I thought you loved Armidale, Joe.
I don't love Armidale. No. I don't love Armidale. I do not love Armidale. You can make money there. You'll make money in the short term, but long term, I haven't got as much faith in Armidale. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. What are the pros and cons? I didn't answer the question. I think one of the things is to have a chat with multiple people about the whole area and cross-reference what they said. So like one of my favorite things is get onto Google Maps. Hey, are you in front of Google Maps? Please just let me understand this area. And together you go through it with the property manager. Now, Sam, you're always out on the road, and you'll still stop and be like, no, not that road. I know exactly where that is. Hell no, you don't buy there. Or yes, that's actually a premium suburb. But yeah, you just jump on the phone and say, where are the hot spots and not spots? And what should I be looking at and shouldn't I be looking at? And then all of a sudden you've chatted to 5 people and things start to corroborate. So one of the pros are you can actually get a lot of work done by doing this stuff yourself online on the computer. But for me, you're building a hypothesis, right? You're building a hypothesis. The only way to confirm this hypothesis is to go out there yourself. The problem is if you're buying in South Australia or buying in Perth, that's like a 6-hour journey. Like it's a whole day to get to Perth from Sydney. So you do have to have it. However, you're spending $800,000, $600,000, $500,000, over $500,000. You should do it. Or if you're using, a professional to help you out, they should have done it. They should be able to see that because the areas change and shift as well. So you do have to keep your finger on the pulse of these things as well. Like, do you see that much actually? Do you see? I didn't say Ashley. I said actually. Do you see? Do you see that change actually? Like over time, do you see areas shifting and changing, and how quick does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely in the past sort of like 2 to 3 years, I've seen some suburbs just really take off and grow from what they were formerly. So it's fantastic to see. I mean, the population growth is huge over here, thanks to the COVID thing and all that sort of jazz when we boomed. But it's a lot of suburbs have absolutely improved, and it's been great.
What are some of those suburbs that you think have done well?
So definitely south would be the Rockingham area. So anything within that sort of region has done really well. North of the river, you've got Merriwa and Clarkson, which they just took off and they've just expanded and they've got fantastic infrastructure. So from the south and the north, they're probably 2 pockets that have definitely grown over the past 3-4 years. Been great.
Are you steering clear of Armidale and Gosnells because Joe's sort of said his satisfaction with it?
Actually,
I don't mind Armidale and Gosnells, to be honest with you. And also, those. I mean, those areas a lot looking at properties. So the thing is with those particular areas is they're blue collar, generally dual income. So, they can afford to pay a bit of rent. So the way I know you're not a fan, Joe, but the way I look
That's
at it
all right.
is obviously you're not spending 800,000, you're spending less, but I don't think you're going to be rent capped there. Whereas if you were to buy in, say, Kwinana, where it's a lot of unemployment and single income and single mums and that sort of stuff, and their incomes are capped as tenants. So the best rent that you're getting right now in the market today is probably the best rent you're ever going to get, because it's just they can't afford it. They can't afford any more than that. You put the rent up, they'll move in, but they're going to be in rent arrears. But with your westy suburbs and your blue collar suburbs, at least they've got dual income and relatively good money, so they can pay the rent as it increases.
Before we move on to renovations, what
price.
are some of those indicators that say that there is capacity for rents to keep growing, or there's going to be cap aside from, I suppose, a lot of single households? Is that a key indicator?
Look, the demographic and the employment opportunities that the suburb has. Do you know what I mean? What is it close to? Obviously, if it's close to the airport for your FIFO workers, Rockingham's got the Navy base. You guys know you've got the RAF base in Bullsbrook, which is why those foothill suburbs are quite good for that as well. Whereas when you move to, and I know I keep using Aurelia and Kwinana as an example, it's just a really good example. There's just nothing. There's nothing down there, and the one refinery that they had, they've shut down. But all of the people that worked at that refinery lived in the Rockingham, Port Kennedy, Warnbro suburbs, because none of them wanted to be out there. So but in saying that, I do have clients that buy there, and they're doing really well at the moment. But I just don't see that those people will be able to afford any much more than what they're paying.
And then that also caps a bit of capital growth as well. You know, as an investor, a lot of these areas are and haven't really got that owner occupier appeal as much, like the Kwinana, the Aurelia. I've definitely steered clear of those because of that. But if they hit that ceiling, then I'm only getting a 5% yield. I want a 6% yield. I'm not going to look at this area anymore because the rents aren't going to grow anymore, and I can't get the price has to drop for my rent to increase to give me my 6% yield, which is a bit of a shame. So not saying don't buy there, not saying buy there. Do your own thing, do your own due diligence on it. But one of the you do you. One of the things I like about kind of remote investing is borderless investing, is that it takes the emotion out of it for the investor. Because if I was to invest in my own backyard, I have all these preconceived notions around, no, this area is really good, this area is really good, and you just overlay that. I'm never going to buy in this pocket. I'm never going to buy in this pocket because my girlfriend broke up with me over there and I hate that area. It's like all these ideas that just aren't really based on fact. And as soon as you step over the boundary and go borderless, it just becomes a number on the spreadsheet. So I think that that's a really cool part about buying Interstate as an investor. You're like, I don't really care what it is. If it stacks up and it fits the brief. How important, actually, one of the questions I have is, how important is it to match your property to the demographic, like what Jeff was talking about with a 3-bed in, Port Kennedy.
3x1 in Port Kennedy,
yeah, which is predominantly a 4x2. How important is that, or is that not so important? How do you think about that?
Look, for me, it's super important, I think, because at the end of the day, when you've got 5 houses online for rent in a whatever that location looks like, and yours doesn't match up to the rest of them, you're always going to be last, or your tenant pool is going to be that much smaller. So we really want to know and understand our demographic and make sure that we're buying property that is going to at least, appeal to the vast majority of people that live in this area, so that we got good demand, we can get good rent, and I think it's huge, massive.
Yeah. I see it all the time. I see it all the time where people do that, and they're like, but the vacancy rates are 0.01%. Yeah. And that 1% is 5 of your product.
Yeah.
That's why it is. Actually,
Yeah.
going back to the housing commission side of things, I just had a question, because there are tools like microburbs, guys. If you haven't heard of microburbs, you can check out microburbs.
Really good.
That is using old data from the 2014
Census.
census. So is it? Yeah.
I thought they updated it. Didn't they update for
No.
2021? Oh, whatever. Yeah, it's
Whatever.
whatever it is.
Anyway, do you
Probably.
have like a percentage that you think about in terms of housing commission? Do you do it by case? Like, how do you think about housing commission?
Yeah, absolutely case by case. Absolutely case by case, depending on the house where it is. And yeah.
Okay.
We just
Yeah.
we really need more housing commission in Perth. We definitely need it. And it's I don't want people to look at it as a negative thing, because most of the time it's fine.
We just need houses everywhere, whether they be housing commission, whether they be built by landlords, who is building. We just need more housing sort of shortage. We're mindful of time. I want to move to renovation, because that is a super juicy topic. So shall we talk to, you usually ask the best first question, Joe, and I usually follow up with some good ones. What would be the number one question you'd ask if you were renovating in the state, Joe? I want to know, because you love a good renovation.
I do love a good renovation, but what are the mistakes that you see, Samantha, in renovations done remotely with people that aren't necessarily, people that should be doing it? How yeah.
I think the biggest mistake that people make is they underestimate what the cost is going to be and the timeline it takes. So, I mean, Joe, when we're talking about a property that needs renovation, we'll always factor in that vacancy period. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's loss of income. So we like to factor that in, and people will just underestimate, and they're not prepared for the surprises, because we can only see so much. And sometimes when you start digging around and start renovating a property, you get these little hairballs come up. So, it's good to be able to factor all that in, but so many people don't. And then, if you're shopping around for the cheapest trade, you're probably going to get, a cheap job. So I think that people need to be mindful, and really just, if you're going in for a renovation job, know your budget, know what it needs, get some quality trades, and really get into it, because if you just try and do it half-assed, it's just going to end up
the amount of time in my life,
not
inside renovations, not inside property, outside, just in any situation, you get what you pay for. No matter how you try and skin it, you can get 10%, 5% discounts and things like that, but you absolutely get what you pay for. If you get the cheapest absolute rubbish thing, you will get a rubbish result at the end of it. Okay, so so just, do we get 3 quotes for a trade? Like, is that how it works? Or
so none of your professional trades will quote for free. So sparkies, air cons, plumbers, they're not going to go out and quote a job for free. So fortunately with me, I can call my guys and go, look, this is the situation. This is what I've got. They can give me some rough figures over the phone. I can relay that back to the client, and then they can go, yeah, I'm happy to proceed. Then he'll go out and have a look. And, generally the price comes in similar to what he's already quoted over the phone. So, you can try and get 3 quotes for stuff like painting or any landscaping. Your carpet guys will quote for free. Your window treatments, so blinds, curtains, they'll all go out and quote for free. If you are taking on a renovation yourself and your property is sitting empty, you need to have a lockbox on site. So have a lockbox on site, and make sure that you've had someone go and check that the property is secure, so that whilst it's sitting vacant for this 6, 8, 10 weeks that it's taking you to renovate, it doesn't, it's not at risk of being broken into, or doesn't scream, this property's vacant, come in. So absolutely have a lockbox on site, and just make sure the property is secure.
Yeah, I did that.
You know that one, Joe, don't you?
Yeah, I got everything delivered to site, and I was like, this is a great idea. I'll just get Bunnings, I'll get the dishwasher, all of that stuff. I'll get it all sent there. And you know what? I'll get the blinds sent there at the same time. And the funny thing is, they took everything but the blinds. They broke in. I don't even know how they broke in. There was no broken glass or broken window. The door was just left open, and they took everything. And I was like, I wish I had installed the blinds first, and then got everything delivered. you can't have it vacant. But that's a massive expense. Like 4 weeks at $500, 8 weeks at $500 is $4,000. Like that, you need to think about that. I have a friend that's doing a renovation down in the South Coast. He's a tradie. He's doing it all himself. He's like, I've saved so much on trades, mate. I've saved so much on trades. I'm like, great. How long have you done it for? Oh, I'm busy. So 8 months and we're still going. Well, that's thousands of a lost opportunity of rent that you haven't actually saved money. One of my questions around, what do we ask our property managers to see if they can do and help with this service for us? Because I've spoken to a lot of property managers and they're like, I'm not touching that. There's no way I'm going to do these renovations. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of effort involved. And we just don't have capacity.
And this is what we're sort of saying at the start of the show. You need to be really upfront and have those difficult conversations with the property manager from the get-go, because there's no point in buying a house that she's gone and looked at and now you want to renovate it and she doesn't want to have a bar of it, because a lot of property managers just don't. So, definitely just that has to be all done and dusted and agreed upon prior to you engaging that property manager. That conversation has to happen at the start. Budgets, what your expectations are, is she going to manage the renovation fully, site check, all that sort of stuff. All of that needs to be negotiated and agreed upon before you.
I think that's the key process or key takeaway for me with a lot of real estate is be clear and transparent with your communication. Be as upfront as you can be, because if you're not clear and transparent with what you want or what you want out of something, you're going to burn yourself down the track, and then you'll sort of find out this person actually is not the property manager who I should be helping to buy that investment property remotely. So it's a takeaway for a lot of things in life.
And
I had a couple of clients fly over to do the renovations. So I did all the pre-purchase inspection, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, this is what the property needs. And he was like, well, this is going to be, I can save myself $5,000 here if I fly over and I'll just put a swag on the floor and I'll stay at the house and do it. And he did. And, he did a lovely job. It was great. But that's obviously not for everyone. And he was able to take that week off work and fly over and get it all done. But it was I sort of thought, that's a great idea. He did really well. So it saved me having to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. This is your favorite guy. This is actually what you recommend all clients do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'll help you buy it, you fly over and renovate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the
go, Jeff?
I was going to ask, what are the checks that you would sort of suggest somebody, let's just say they're not doing it in Perth, let's say they're doing it in Queensland or Victoria. What sort of things should people be asking their property manager or whoever it is that is getting to manage to make sure that things are getting done properly and are moving forward? Because that's a concern of mine. Like, I don't like letting go the keys to my financial future to somebody else. So what things are red flags for investors if they're getting somebody to do it? Are you
meaning in the sense of renovation and keeping it on track?
Yeah, keeping it on track, because it'd be hard to keep things on track. Like, it's maybe not a priority for a property manager or whoever's managing it for them. Like, what things should people be looking at?
Yeah, so if you've organised, if I'm buying in Queensland, I've organised my own trades or what have you to go to the property and to do bits and pieces. I would be asking, once that final invoice came in, I would be calling my property manager and I'd be going, can you please go to the house and can you please check this work and, take photos, take videos, make sure it's been completed to the standard, not paying the account until it's done. So, and having that communication with the trade as well. Like, a lot of my trades will send photos and videos to me as they're progressing through so that I can send them through to the owners if I'm not on site. So that would be huge, just having that property manager attend the site and go, yep, the painting's done, it looks really good, you're free to go and move on to the next stage.
And is that part of the way you manage your trades as well? Like, not manage them, but you sort of you do a lot of jobs. Do you, or is it just assumed that the people, do you ask that question? Do you send progress photos? Or is that like a bit?
I definitely send progress photos. I absolutely send progress photos so that people can see what's going on, because a lot of the time, so when I get a property that needs renovations, I'll walk into the property with my pen and paper, go into every single room, write down what I think it needs, come back to the office, put that into a full spreadsheet, write down my list of contractors that I need and my price estimates, and then I'll send all of that off to the client and go, look, if you go all out, this is what this is what I think the property needs, this is what I think it'll benefit from, and all that sort of jazz. They'll go through it and work out what they can and can't afford at this time. Some stuff we'll put on a 12-month plan, so they don't necessarily have to do all the renovations up front. And then once I've got the go-ahead, I'll book in the trades. I never pay any account until I've checked the work. And even with my trusted trades that I've worked for years, because, you know, if it was my house and if it was my $10,000 that someone was spending, I would want someone to go and check before I go hand over the money. So, yeah, absolutely always check and do progress photos.
Yeah, one of the things that I got caught up with on a renovation was paying by the hour, and we got progress shots done. And it was an absolute, like, it was a paint job. They did the painting. He's like, I'm going to paint by the hour. And I was like, wow, I hope your brush strokes are really, really fast, because this sounds stupid, Joe. Like, why the hell would you get someone to paint by the hour? But anyway, he painted by the hour. He was super cheap. And I was like, yeah, but this guy said it's going to be $800, like, you know, $1,200 or whatever the number was at the time. And he did the job. The property manager went out there to confirm it, showed me the video. And I was like, this is terrible. So I reached out to the guy. I'm like, mate, you've done probably the worst paint. I don't even know what a paintbrush is. I could do a far better job. And he's like, cool. Yeah, I'll go back there. You just need to pay me. I'm like, no, I'm paying you for the job. No, you're not. You're paying me by the hour. You're not paying me by the job. Is that like a blanket rule? Is that something I should be following going forward? How do you think about payment and terms?
Look, absolutely get your quotes and make sure you understand your quotes. Call the contractor direct and ask any questions so that you know that this price is for what you expect it to be. Some people will want a 50% deposit. My trades don't ask for that because they know they're going to get, you know, paid at the end of the job. But I'm happy to pay 50% if needed, especially if it's a large account or a handyman that you know has to outlay prior to commencing any works. And then I hold off on paying any final balance until it's fixed, until it's done, completed, happy. I can't believe you paid a painter by the hour. Like, who does that?
I like that you mentioned that, Joe. Shows that we can learn.
I paid my Sparky by the hour, and he did an amazing job. I was like, I need every light switch in my house done. And he's like, one guy was like, it's going to cost me $1,600. I was like, $1,600? How long is that going to take you? Half an hour. So I called up the next Sparky. I'm like, hey, can you install these PowerPoints by the hour? And he's like, yeah, I could do. I'm like, great. What's your hourly rate? He's like, 40, well, whatever it was, $50, $80. I'm like, great, let's do it. And then it worked a treat. So I just blanket ruled that, messed it up entirely. So apologies for whoever's got my paint job now. So in terms of what's the limit? Like, because you're amazing, Samantha. Every time I call you, nothing is too much work. But I also appreciate, like, what is too much? How much is too much? What should we expect from a property manager to help us with a renovation? Because it gets to a point, like I was thinking about a renovation that we did together on Donald. That was massive. Like, it was half done. We bought a property that was half done renovation. Sam was our property manager. He helped me with the renovation to complete it. Ended up working wonderfully, but like, I was like, Sam, this is too much. This is way too much for you. And you're like, yeah, it's all right. We got this. But yeah, what should we expect?
I think for property managers, you know, you would do paint, flooring, blinds, appliance updates. So if you're, you know, replacing the dishwasher or the cooktop or what have you, probably a little bit of landscaping, minor plumbing stuff. So if you're just switching out some tapware, I wouldn't be giving them a kitchen renovation where you need to, you know, put new cupboards in. I wouldn't be asking them to do a whole new bathroom renovation. So just the basic facelifty type stuff for a property manager wouldn't be unreasonable to ask, and should be something that they should be able to manage. You know, obviously you wouldn't give a property manager the Donald Drive property because they're not going to have the time or the patience to deal with that. But, you know, but you just, it's such good instant value. I've got a client that I'm working with at the moment, and, you know, this is a fantastic case study for this conversation. So the purchase price was purchased down south, so beachside in Warnbro, so on the beach side of that main road. Purchase price was $420 for a 4x2, but the whole house has to be renovated. So it was owner occupied, trashed. The other thing that I love about this house is it's got side access and a big powered workshop. And you boys know that I love a big powered workshop. I think it adds
and a patio out the back. You love your patios and your powered workshop.
Yeah, so it's got a patio. It's got all the things. It ticks all my boxes. And so purchased for $420. It settled at Christmas, so I didn't start any renovation work until sort of that end of the first week in January because everyone was shut down. And I'm 2 weeks away from being finished. And I think we've probably spent, let's say 50 grand. I think it's probably going to be more about 45, but we'll say 50 grand.
Wow.
So that takes it up to 470. So she's still under market with that property because you can't buy a house.
What would that be? What fully renovated Warnbro would be?
560, 590, somewhere between that.
Yeah.
And so Warnbro. Beach side.
Yeah. So, and obviously we're going to try and get as much possible rent as we can, given that it's got the big power workshop and the side access and all the things. So, and it's sat vacant since Christmas because it literally settled that week leading up to Christmas. So she's obviously lost that time period, but we couldn't help that Christmas break. But yeah, I'm only a couple of weeks away from it now. And it's been a great transformation. This owner has been fantastic to deal with, was very aware of the property when she bought it. She knew it was going to cost, sort of that high 40s to get it up and running. And it's going to be fantastic. And she's got instant equity. She's going to have a great tenant, set and forget property after this little bit of hard work.
Jeez. Well, so what are the things...
Yeah, well, I guess that's my biggest takeaway from a bit of this conversation is to make money in property, you absolutely buy a good location that has good fundamentals and the area is going to grow. But if you can do a renovation and you can buy something that's ugly, like if you can, 540 in Warnbro is 16, 15 months ago, like ages ago price range, but she still bought that. I added $50,000, which is a lot of money. So you need to have the cash. But I mean, you and I, and we've done $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 renovations, and that's given us $10,000 renovation has given us $30,000. A $20,000 has given us $60,000, $80,000. And that is equity that you can then use to jump into your next property and to jump into your next property. And the biggest reason why people don't do it is because they're scared of the renovation. They're scared of the work that's needed. Although it might just be carpet, paints, blinds, a new vanity unit, and a shower screen. That's like, hell no, I'm not going to touch that. But you can actually make a boatload of money by doing stuff like this. And it's amazing to know that you've got help.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, I mean, Joe, I'm also a huge fan of this 3x1 conversion. Can we convert the laundry into a second bathroom? What can we do here? Can we add that fourth bedroom? And these things don't necessarily have to be done as soon as you've bought the property. But if you know that there's good framework there to be able to turn this property into a 3x2 or a 4x2, whatever that looks like, with just a little bit of renovation and some, good tactics, like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do it? It's just,
I want to, speaking of that kind of maintenance and down the track sort of things, and I think after this we'll throw it out and then get some Q&A. But I want to know what are the sort of things that investors should be looking at yearly, and then sort of maybe every 5 years and every 10 years, maintenance sort of things, the really high ticket items, because that's a thing that some people don't think about. So if we could get a list of those things and roughly what investors should be budgeting for those things.
Yeah, so it depends on the condition of the house at the time of purchase, but I will always go through from top to bottom. And these are things, obviously, what we've spoken about, blinds, carpets, paint. And then there's the external stuff. So your gutters, your downpipes, your big, huge, massive gum tree that you've got in the backyard. And I'll list it all for the investor. And then we'll sit down and go, look, this is something that we can address. I think we should address now. And then this over here, like this large tree, or what's another good example? The blinds or what have you. This is 2 or 3 years away.
Even the fences as well, maybe.
Yeah, and blinds add up as well. They're like
over fences. As far as I'm concerned now with fences, I'm just waiting for them to all fall down, because or I pass it back to the or I just pass it back to the property manager. I know I shouldn't say that, and sorry to any of the property
Bit of
managers.
sore point, Sam. Sorry.
It is, it's such a time-consuming process to try and get the person on the other side to come to the party and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, you know what? Just wait for the fence to fall down. We'll let the property manager and the insurance deal with it.
How much do you want the dog? Like the next door neighbor all of a sudden cares when the dog keeps getting out. So maybe they're on your side now.
Yeah. And fences are neither here nor there. Do you know what I mean? A fence that's on a lean or what have you, or is a bit ugly, it's not really going to deter how much rent you get. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not, unless of course it's majorly, got massive holes in it and the dog is from next door is coming in, of course. But if it's just old and dated and faded and a bit yuck, then if it's not, I'll just leave it.
What about like the Super 6 and the asbestos? Like, is that a big concern for you?
No. Look, we've got asbestos fences everywhere in Perth, and also asbestos sheeting in the eaves and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. With an asbestos fence, you just paint it if it cracks. So, when they crack over time, you can just get a handyman out there to just apply paint to the asbestos fence. That protects all the fibres from flying around, and it's deemed safe. And when it does fall down in a storm, the insurance company will just send out the right person who will come and remove it and put the temp fence up until the colour bond is ready or whatever. And the Super 6 is, we don't make that anymore. So any Super 6 fence that you have, which is the stuff that looks like asbestos but not, will be replaced with a colour bond fence because, you can't buy Super 6 anymore.
Yeah, so what is Super 6? So it just looks like
it looks the same as asbestos. Yeah, so it's that grey, wavy, corrugated look, but it's not. The way that you can tell an asbestos fence is the colour. They're generally shorter. They'll have an asbestos capping across the top, not tin, and the screw fixings that fix the sheets together are diamond-shaped. So that's the three big signs that you're dealing with an asbestos fence.
Oh, yeah,
but again, they're not an issue. Like, it's not a deterrent. I wouldn't be concerned.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty expensive. Like we just got a quote for the vendor's paying for it actually because there was an asbestos fence and we said we don't want it. Was that it was $6,000 for 20 meters of removal of the asbestos fence and installation of colour bond. And I thought that was pretty expensive.
And that's why you wait for it to fall down in the storm and let insurance deal with it.
That ain't my problem. That's insurance problem.
Look, obviously, if you've got 20 meters, that sounds quite excessive, to be honest with you. I think we had a job. It wasn't quite 20 meters. It might have only been sort of like 10. It was nowhere near half of that. Like, that sounds.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize I had an asbestos expert on the show as well. You even know we'd come down to what the screws are. Unreal. One thing I was reading up about asbestos is that 50% of households in Australia have asbestos. So don't, poop the bed when you see asbestos. Every problem has a solution. It just has a cost attached to it. But I want to jump into some of these questions. But before we do that, we're going to jump into this ad and then we'll dive deep into some of the questions that people have. So if you do have any questions, pop them in. Chuck them in there.
Yeah. I got a question or two as well.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
And we are back. So I want to jump in and steal the thunder and ask the first question, because with interest rates having risen 13 times, and maybe they haven't stopped and maybe they have. We don't know, because I saw the FOMC will be looking at the inflation US. But my question is, granny flats in WA, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this, Sam? Are they a great option, or I mean, obviously case by case, but what are your thoughts on that? Are they an opportunity in WA?
Yeah, look, I love the idea of granny flats in WA, and not only because obviously you can have that potential for dual income on your investment property, but it just opens, I just think it opens the doors to so many different options. Do you know what I mean? Because you could use that space for anything, regardless of, whether you're own you sell your investment later on, that person's got a 5x3 now instead of a 4x2 or what have you. It doesn't suit every property. So if you are looking at it from an investment point of view and you want that dual income set up, you need to make sure that you've got good driveway access and, good fencing and all that sort of jazz for privacy. I'm a huge fan. My property managers are not so much. Every time I sort of bring on a property when I've hinted that we're going to put a granny flat on it, they sort of do the eye roll at me like, because it can be that much extra work for a property manager. But I'll make sure that it's as smooth as possible for them. But I've seen some great results, and I'm a huge fan.
So with granny flats, actually, a great example is the Janet one that we did. It had an existing granny flat. So are you talking about deals that already have existing granny flats on them, or building? Like, is it worthwhile building in Perth? Maybe that might not be a question that you can really answer too confidently, but is it worthwhile buying a property, like a large property, a good property on a large block, and then chucking a granny flat on the back?
Yeah, I think so. So it just depends on how much you're spending on the granny flat, because you've got two different sorts. You've got your prefab, which is going to be cheaper, which is what we've got at Janet. And then you've got your brick builds, which generally is built by Summit, and they can be quite expensive, but they're a lot nicer. And you have to keep in mind that if you're purchasing a property and you're putting a tenant in the main house, and your goal is to put a granny flat in the backyard, you have to have those terms negotiated prior to build, because you can't give the tenant the whole property and then chop it in halfway through. So, that's something that you'll just work through with your property manager. But, I think it's great, especially the prefab ones, as far as turnaround time and cost. And they're nice inside. They're lovely. So great for, the older teenagers, great for people that have got mum and dad, elderly mum and dad at home, or home office. So, and it does add the value.
Well, that was like, Janet might be a good example. We had a 3-in-1, a three bedroom, 1 bathroom. We won't give you the location or anything like that. We paid $565,000 for it, and it had a granny flat on the back. And the plan, what was the plan for the rental side of things for that? Because we ended up renting it for one family. So it wasn't like, let's put someone in the front and put someone in the back. That was the plan, but it didn't end up working like that.
No, it didn't. So, and that sometimes happens, and that's up to the owner to accept or decline the application based on what they want to do. So we set the property up so that it could be leased as a dual let, marketed the property, and we had a family turn up who said, this would be perfect for our older son. We'll offer to pay X. Does the owner want to accept it? And took it to the owner, and the owner was like, yep, I'm happy with that. So it was still a really good outcome for the owner. And I mean, these tenants are long-term tenants, and they're paying really good rent. But yeah, we did set it up so that it could be a dual let. So when they vacate, we've got the option to do that again. Everything is ready to go.
That's kind of the cool thing for me, is it because you're getting a real premium rent for that front house with the extra granny flat, which is essentially an extra room and bathroom and bedroom and living space. And it gives me comfort as an investor, because it's like, well, I don't want to put a granny flat on it because I can't rent it. Well, that person's paying almost as much as what 2 individual rents would be. So you're going to be
Yeah.
fine. It's an extra value add because now you've got all that extra space for a teenager, an older person that wants a bit of independence but wants to be close to the family. So yeah, I love that. It worked out really good.
I imagine in that situation, you probably would have, because is it a slight road when somebody's willing to pay overs for a property? I imagine you probably want to do your
Good question.
strict checks on to make sure.
What was that, Jeff? You cut out there a little bit.
So when you were doing that, because somebody said straight away, look, I'm willing to pay basically what a person would pay for, they almost pay the same amount if it would renting out separately. I imagine you would have scrutinized that application quite a lot, because you want to make sure you're not getting somebody who's going to come in and fall into rent arrears or wreck the place.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
You do that for everybody, though.
We absolutely do that for everyone. And in actual fact, the people that offer more get scrutinized 10 times more. Do you know what I mean? Because just because they're offering more does not necessarily mean that they're a good tenant. So yeah, we go through every application with a fine-tooth comb and then some. So the risk is minimal. Obviously, as we know, there's always an element of risk, and bad things can happen to good people sometimes, and they can fall into arrears regardless of whether it be their own fault or not. But yeah, absolutely. Processing applications is key when putting any tenant in.
Let's get to some of the audience questions. Now, I think this is actually one. Actually, she said, Ashley's jumped in. She said, are there some renovations that don't add value, replacing like for like? I mean, that's an example one that doesn't add value, but what ones do you think don't add value, Sam?
There's lots of things that don't add value. Sometimes it just needs to be done. So paint necessarily doesn't add that much value. If you're replacing carpets like for like, it's not going to add value. But if you're replacing the whole flooring with some really nice high-end flooring, that's going to add a little bit of value. When you're doing your kitchen renovations, if you're just swapping out the cupboards for the same cupboards as opposed to potentially getting that higher end finish and the nicer handles, all of that sort of stuff amplified is going to add value, especially. And appliances, people have got those old, I don't know if you have them where you are, but you see them a lot here, the air conditioners that hang out the windows or off the side of the wall that are quite ugly.
We have those. Box air conditioners.
Getting rid of that and decommissioning it properly and finishing off that wall properly and putting in a really decent split system. I mean, that's all stuff that's going to add value.
Yeah. Well, because that's one of the things that I love about working with an investment focused property manager, because there's two sides of the fence for this, and you'll have a conversation with a property manager, you'll quickly identify it, but it's like, it's all about spending the least amount of money possible to maximize the rent and the value that you're going to get. And obviously there are situations where you do need to paint because the scratches and the dog's been, doing crazy stuff, and it's not going to add value, but it's trying to work out what is the least amount of money that I can spend to maximize the rent. What are some of those things that cost nothing, cost a little, obviously, and get the maximum rent return?
Yeah, so say for example, in your en-suites, bathrooms and laundry, so those three areas, it's really, really good just to do a general facelift. So swapping out those old handles, making them, replacing them with something a little bit more modern, which doesn't cost a lot of money and it doesn't take, too much time. And, obviously once you've painted as well, even just swapping out the light shades, like the amount of people that have just got bayonets or what have you, and taking the time to go and get some light shades that look half decent, look high end, but aren't necessarily high end, just to finish off these rooms, and replacing a yellow stained toilet seat. Little bits and pieces like that are going to visually make the property look better, and it is definitely going to add value just with those little facelifty things.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't even think about it. And it really sucks as well. As a property investor, I could go there for 5 minutes, 20 minutes and replace all those knobs and handles and stuff like that. But you are going to have to pay a handyman $50 an hour, $25 an hour to do the stuff. But it still gives you that extra rental return. It still makes it because how do you think about it, Sam, from those little things? Because it also attracts a different demographic as well. Because if you've got some real basic B home, not really going to drive the goodies.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what I explained to the clients, like I want to present the property in the best possible light that I can for the best value of money, that I can, so that I can get you the best possible tenant. And I want to draw in those high quality tenants that want to live somewhere that looks nice, looks like it's been well maintained, so that the tenant knows that they're moving into a property and the owner's not a type person that's not going to fix anything and that's going to turn to ruin. So I absolutely that's the end goal, and it doesn't take that much time or money to get it up and running. And obviously I know you have to pay a handyman to do all those bits and pieces, but we factor all that in when I'm going through the property initially, and I'm writing my big list when I'm going through each individual room, and I'm itemizing all of this sort of stuff. I can go, look, this is how much it's going to cost. It's going to make the house look 10 times better because it's going to be all modern and, photographed really well for the rental photos. And most of the time people are on board and they get it. And it does make a difference.
Yeah.
I think
I
sometimes you've got to be pound thing to make sure spend the pounds to make some extra ones.
We're not spending bucket loads. We're not spending bucket loads at all.
Isabella asked this one. Yeah. There's incredibly high demand for rentals in Perth, which is making people rent in areas they wouldn't usually. I mean, is that agree or disagree, Sam? What do you think on that to start off with?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are expanding their suburb search, and even I've done this recently. So I'm looking for a new rental, and you would think it would be easy for me to find a new rental, right? Given my industry.
Really, so
but
access to all of them.
So I was initially looking sort of close to the office there in South Perth and couldn't find anything, and I had to start expanding my areas and that sort of stuff. So yes, absolutely, people are doing that. But we're also seeing some break leases as well. So they'll get a property and obviously they'll get something else, or the situation will change and they'll break lease. It's still pretty hot over here. Definitely, like the home opens that I was going to looking for my own rental, there'd still be like 10 to 20 people turning up, and I'm looking at, $1,000 a week plus because I'm in the city. And there's still plenty of people around willing to pay it and wanting property.
Are there areas where you're seeing it hit a wall? Rents are starting to hit a ceiling?
You know what? I did think this a couple of months ago, but I think it was just seasonal. I think it was just because I sort of thought that it was still going to be busy over that Christmas period, but things really started to slow down. And I thought, okay, maybe this is that little bit of a turning point where some areas now might be capped. But then, we've put some property online this week and we've gone up higher than what I had initially thought, but I test the waters. And, we're getting massive inquiry on it. So it's like, okay, well, no, there's still good growth there. And that's across the board.
That's the interesting thing about Perth is affordability wise, everything is still so cheap. We are nowhere near Sydney prices, Melbourne prices, Perth, Brisbane prices. Getting close to Brisbane prices, that's for sure. But it is still so cheap. People do make good money there. And there was, 14 years ago, it had a period of very long stagnation, but 14 years ago, Perth was a completely different world. And now going there now, you're like, this is a full city. I would live here. I think if I landed if I lived in Perth, I don't think I would move away from Perth. Like if I was born in Perth and lived there, I could absolutely move there and have an amazing life because it is unreal. So much nature.
It is a great part of the world. Yeah, it's definitely a great part of the world. But yeah, it is nice.
Jeff gave me the Joe. You're steering away from the conversation. Let's get back to it. So
no,
let's get some
all
of
right.
these questions up.
Yeah, I wanted to look at this one. It's a long question. Okay. Do you want me to read it, Joe? Or you got it?
I'll read it, mate. I'll read it. When buying in a low socioeconomic area with high crime rates, what are some of the common tenant issues that you come across? That's a great question. Let's just hit that. What are some of the, for now, and then we'll come back to the rest of it.
Like 4 questions.
What are some of the, okay, let's just say we've bought in a low socioeconomic area. There's a high crime rate around. What do you see?
I think the main thing, the only time it's ever going to affect the investor and obviously the property manager is when there are issues. So that's going to stem to non-payment of rent first and foremost, non-payment of water accounts, and the way that they keep the property. So if they've got, 5 cars parked on the lawns, or the dog's running right inside, or the kids have drawn all over the walls, or whatever that looks like, they're really the main things. Then you bring in the neighbourhood and the neighbourhood complaints, and the next door person or the house behind calling you every 5 minutes going, this tenant's having wild parties, or the cops are there all the time. If, this is worst case scenario if it's a troublesome tenant. They're the sorts of things that we come across. And it's not always just in the low socio areas, but tends to be higher down there.
Yeah, they come up. So, I mean, are they just terrible things? Like what you just told me, kids drawing on the walls and dogs running around, like that doesn't sound like a lot of problem.
Well, the loss of rent and income is definitely a lot of problems. What it means is that for the property manager going out to do an inspection, dealing with the person that's not maintaining the house, is she has to then breach the tenant, go out and re-inspect, and then go through the process that if this tenant hasn't rectified the kid drawing on the walls or what have you, the landlord's got a choice to make. Do we keep this tenant in that we know is not looking after the property but is paying her rent on time? And, the house is slowly going to deteriorate over the 12 months if this is how she lives and you're okay with it, Mr. Landlord? Or are we going to go through the motions and get this tenant out and get somebody in who is going to look after the property? Because if you keep someone like that in your house, even if you only kept them in for the 12 months and then you didn't renew their lease, the bond's not going to cover it. You're going to be up for landlord insurance to, get the house up to standard. We hand over properties in the best possible way, and we expect every tenant, doesn't matter if they're paying $200 a week or $2,000 a week, we expect this level of standard to be maintained for every property that we have. And so should a landlord.
Maintain their property.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's a great answer. Okay. Going back to this one, how does a newbie investor develop the mindset to deal with the risk headaches associated with some of the risk management strategies for an investor? So how should an investor think about these problems? Because you don't.
That's a really
you want
question.
the easy. Yeah. You want to set and forget.
You do want to set and forget. And, having good people in your team is key. So whether you're using a buyer's agent, having a really knowledgeable accountant that understands what your portfolio goals are, having your mortgage broker on hand, having your property management agency, all of these people are going to do their role that they need to play within your investment journey. And they're all going to, there's always going to be that element of risk. But if you've got a really good team behind you, and it's not just your agent, as you guys know, there's a lot more to it, even your conveyancer. So if you've got a really good team behind you, your risk is small, and you can manageable for the risk. So why not just jump in and do it? But like you said earlier, Joe, there's nothing that really can't be fixed. It's just got a price attached to it. And always have good landlord insurance. Good landlord insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, make sure you read those PDFs for sure.
Yeah. But a good agent and a good buyer's agent and a good accountant, if you've got all those things in place, you're buying a property, not most of the time you're going to be okay. And if your tenant does go pear-shaped for whatever reason, your agent is there to help you get through that. And in worst case scenario, your insurance will be there to help with the financial loss. That's
definitely
love
agree.
that. Let's just pretend I'm buying in a low socioeconomic area. I'm buying in a housing commission area. I'm just doing all the things that you're kind of told not to do. What are some of the things that I can do to hedge my bets and make, like from a property management side of things, make my life a little bit better so these things don't come about?
Great question.
You can.
Not really. How do you protect yourself from that? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what I would do in that situation. And you know what? The reward would have to be really big for me to put myself in that situation. So if you're saying I'm going to buy a property for, $400,000 and I'm going to rent it out for $600 a week, might be a risk I'm prepared to take. But if I'm still buying over $500K and I'm only renting it for $500 a week or thereabouts, I could probably do that in a less riskier place that I personally would feel more comfortable with.
Yeah, there's got to be a limit to what you can take on as an investor. There are definite no-go areas, and actually that's a part of this question still going, and still great questions in all of them. Also, not all low socio areas are no-go zones. What are some of the definite no-go zones indicators that you look out for when conducting inspections? So, high socioeconomic areas, there are still no-go areas for them. So what was your question?
100%. And it's just a street by street thing, really, when it comes down to it, because I don't like to just, obviously I've sort of generalized a couple of suburbs tonight, but in all, what I do is obviously go street by street when I'm talking to a client who's looking in an area like that. And it, not only do I drive it and just to make sure that my research is spot on, but I look for, all sorts of indicators. I go through all the data to try and make sure that the client's, educated. But it's pretty obvious. Most people know when they're driving into a, part of town where you want to make sure your windows are locked and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty.
Don't stop at the lights. Just keep driving.
Yeah.
Not telling people to break the laws. You have to decide your own. I wanted to jump in and sort of say, because Joe, I think there could be something valuable that we've learned probably 7 or 8, maybe 9 years ago now. How does one? I wanted to address that. How does one, as a newbie investor, develop the mindset to deal with the risks and headaches? So you know where I'm going with this. Steve Ignite, the name it, the number it, and then numb it. Like, name the risk. Like, okay, the risk is that I get a tenant that trashes the place. That is naming what the risk is, or they draw on the walls, or the dog sort of scratches the walls. And then it's sort of numbering. Okay, if they do that, if I have the really great insurance in place, and it's going to protect me from that, it's going to cost me excess of $1,000 or whatever you decide on the excess. And making sure you're actually covered, and maybe loss of rent while it's being repaired, and then sort of numbing it and saying, okay, look, I'm accepting that this may happen. If it does, here's what it's going to lead to. That's the way I would sort of, it's the main sort of the unemotional sort of numbers driven. And I'm not saying it may happen and then you may sort of revert to, oh, this sucks, woe is me, like my property's been trashed. So it may not be easy in theory, but in practice it may change. But that's the way I would think of it as a newbie.
Yeah. 100%.
Well said, Jeff. Yeah, good job.
There we go. Addison go. I'm done. Night, guys.
Yeah, pack it up. Mic drop. Drop that mic, son. But yeah, for me, it's every problem has a solution. It just has a cost attached to it. Property investing is a game of finance. It's a game of numbers. It's about buying in an area that is undervalued right now and getting a tenant in, getting it rented to a position that it's okay and livable. But maximizing the rent by installing an aircon. How important is air conditioning in Western Australia, Sam? Are they a must? Are they nice to have?
Look, there's a few people with different point of views. Yes, they're a must in my mind, but they're not deemed as urgent repairs. So if your aircon breaks down on a Friday afternoon, it's 42 degrees, you just have to deal with it because it's not an urgent repair. And it takes about 2 weeks to repair an aircon at the moment. So, yeah.
2 weeks. Oh, that's scary. I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I'm in Sydney and I need an aircon. Don't have one.
It's crazy. It's crazy hot here at the moment.
Got the beach.
Exactly. We got the ocean breeze. Sam, how do people learn more about the amazing work that you're doing, and how do they get in contact? How does it work?
They can just give me a ring. I've got all the socials: Facebook, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, all the jazz. Give the office a call. Call me. It's all right. I'll tell you all the things that you need to know.
I can't see you doing TikToks. I can't see you a TikTok.
Oh my God.
I definitely can. Of course, Sam does.
I've just started doing them. Yeah, and mainly because of my son, because he kept getting into mischief and he was giving me some good content. It didn't start off real estate related, but now it is. I've actually started to put my Reno progress stuff on there so people can see.
Yeah,
What's
before and
going on.
afters. That's
Yeah.
super value. Does anyone have any burning questions that they want to throw up? Chuck them in there, and we can. Yeah.
While we're doing that, I just wanted to thank you very much, Sam, for all the help you've given, I suppose, and all the value you've added for this session, and also on Valentine's Day. Like, you stepped in, and we all know that, yeah, like, it's, for some people it's a really important, and I'm sure it is an important day, but you've actually sort of given up some of that time. So I really appreciate you jumping on, and people like giving more clarity on how to go about buying Interstate. Yeah. I think you've absolutely nailed what we were looking to achieve, because this question gets asked probably at least once a week, once a fortnight. So this is going to be something I can point to and say, yep, look at this.
Yeah, you've made it so digestible, and like there's so many different. When I think, take away everything that I know about property, I think investing interstate, it's like, holy crap, there is this coming at me, this. But you've broken it down so simply of like, well, yeah, it's going to cost you $1,000 for that. It's going to cost you $500 for that if that goes wrong. You're absolutely going to be okay as an investor. And if you're not going to go out there, like, if you're not going to go, the best thing that you can do as a property investor is, you're spending $500,000, is jump on a plane and go out there and do it. Second best is obviously using a fantastic buyer's agent. The third best is doing the research and speaking to everybody that you can and learning their knowledge and soaking up them, like people like Samantha, to understand. But if you are thinking about buying, actually, where do you guys service, Sam? Like, what's your kind of demographic of where you look up?
So we're across Perth Metro. So we go as far north as Alkimos and as far south as Dawesville, and then anywhere in between. So massive area.
You go up to Queens.
Pretty much all of Perth.
Yeah,
so
Queens,
that's
go up to Queens.
God, I won't send you there. Don't worry.
Hey, I don't mind Queens. It's got lovely beaches. We've got nice beaches up there, so it's good.
Queens is actually below Alkimos. I thought it was above. Anyway.
Love it. Anything you want to say, Jeff?
No, I just wanted to, as I said, continue on. Thanks for, go and check out Sam. And she picks up the phone very, very effectively, and just is always there to help you out. So reach out to Sam and her team, and you'll be in great hands. That's what I want to say.
Cool.
Have a great
Wonderful
Valentine's, everybody.
Thanks everyone for coming. Let's go buy a property. See you later.
Bye.